Welcome to The Petrine Promise, a Vatican conspiracy thriller written by Dr. Rufaro Celestine. Weekly episodes are released each Saturday.
Chapter 2. The Fragment. Sarah arrived early at the British Museum, her footsteps echoing through marble corridors still hushed with pre-opening quiet. She loved this time of day, before the visitors filled the galleries, when she could almost hear the whispers of history in the air. The grand edifice in Bloomsbury had stood as London's Temple of Knowledge since 1759, when Sir Hans Sloane's vast collection of curiosities first opened to the public. Now, nearly 3 centuries later, it remains one of the world's preeminent museums, drawing over 6 million visitors annually through its iconic colonnade entrance. The building itself, with its Greek Revival architecture and vast glass-ceilinged great court, housed a staggering 8 million artifacts under the care of more than 1,000 specialists, curators and support staff. Sarah often reflected on how the museum's very existence spoke to humanity's need to preserve its past. While the Louvre might claim more visitors and the Metropolitan Museum of Art more American donors, the British Museum held something unique, the world's most comprehensive record of human civilization, from the Rosetta Stone to the Parthenon sculptures. As she made her way past the sleeping galleries, their display cases holding treasures from every corner of the globe, she felt what she always felt, privilege mingled with responsibility. Here, in this hushed morning hour, she was part of an unbroken chain of scholars stretching back through centuries, all dedicated to preserving humanity's cultural heritage. Her security card beeped her through a series of doors leading to the conservation labs, each threshold taking her further and further from the public spaces into the hidden world where the real work happened. In his Vatican office, Cardinal Romano made 2 calls. The first was to Dr. Harrison. "Nigel." The Cardinal's deep voice carried both warmth and warning. "I understand you have an interesting artifact being delivered today. I trust you have received my message about my requirements." "Yes, Your Eminence." Harrison's voice held the careful deference of someone who knew precisely where his funding came from. Although he couldn't help wondering, how had the Cardinal heard about this new fragment so quickly? "The fragment will be in Dr. Chen's lab within the hour." "Excellent. And you remember our arrangement?" "Of course. I'll ensure you receive immediate word of anything she discovers." A pause. "Though perhaps if I knew what we were looking for—" "You'll know it when you see it, Nigel. Just as you've known other things over the years." The Cardinal's tone made it clear the conversation was ending. "I expect to hear from you soon." His second call was to a number he rarely used but knew by heart. It was unlisted in any public phone directory. "Luca." No warmth this time, only authority. "You need to be at the British Museum, immediately." "Yes, Your Eminence," a voice as sharp as steel responded. "An artifact. It will be in Dr. Chen's lab or on her person later today. It must be retrieved at all costs." As he spoke, the Cardinal's fingers traced the gold lettering on his notebook, though hopefully without any loss of life. "Understood." "Make sure you do. The artifact cannot, I repeat, cannot be allowed to get into the wrong hands. I myself will be travelling to the museum this evening. I will expect your full report and to collect the artifact from you when I arrive." "It will be done, Your Eminence." The Cardinal ended the call, his grey eyes fixed on the ancient buildings visible through his window. Everything was in motion now. He could only pray they would have no unexpected loss of life. As the morning sun filtered through the lab's high windows, Sarah settled at her workstation. The smell of preservation chemicals mixed with the musty scent of ancient parchment produced a fragrance more intoxicating to her than the finest French perfume. She was halfway through her morning tea when Dr. Harrison appeared. "Dr. Chen." The head of biblical artifacts looked more dishevelled than usual, his bow tie slightly askew. "Glad I caught you early. We've had a priority acquisition come in. A new Dead Sea Scroll fragment that needs immediate examination and preservation. Apparently, it was discovered during the renovations of an ancient storage area beneath St. Catherine's Monastery. Sarah's pulse quickened. In her 10 years at the museum, she'd handled countless precious manuscripts, but the Dead Sea Scrolls were her special favorite. Authentication confirmed? Preliminary tests looked promising. He placed a sealed conservation case on her desk. Carbon dating and material analysis support first-century origin, but there's something unusual about this one. The Vatican's Archaeological Commission has expressed particular interest. They've requested immediate updates on anything you find. Sarah frowned. The Vatican rarely showed such interest in individual fragments. Any idea why this one's so important? None. Harrison wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Just handle this one carefully, Sarah. More carefully than usual. He left her with the case and a growing sense that something wasn't quite right. Pushing the feeling aside, she began her standard protocols. The lab's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she prepared her workspace, laying out tools with surgical precision. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Respect the text, little one. Every ancient word is a treasure waiting to be found. The fragment itself was smaller than her palm. The parchment was dark with age, but remarkably well preserved. Sarah adjusted her microscope and began the painstaking process of documentation. She moved with the deliberate precision of someone used to handling priceless artifacts. Hours went by as her camera clicked rhythmically. She had to photograph every millimeter of the artifact to build a digital record before attempting any preservation work. That's when she saw it. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting the microscope's focus. There, in the corner of the scroll's backing, barely visible to the naked eye, was something that shouldn't exist, a single tiny letter in ancient Aramaic. Its presence pointed to what appeared to be a hidden pocket in the scroll's binding. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for finer tools. Aramaic, the language Jesus actually spoke, not the Greek of later translations. She was one of only a handful of scholars worldwide qualified to read the oldest forms of this ancient language. The British Museum had hired her specifically for this expertise, but in her 10 years, she'd never seen anything quite like this. Working with painstaking care, she loosened the delicate fibers of the binding. A small piece of papyrus slipped free, covered in precise Aramaic handwriting that looked remarkably well preserved for its age. The script was elegant, clearly the work of a trained scribe. Her heart raced as she started typing the translation of the first line. "To those who seek truth, what you have been taught is not what was written." Sarah's hand froze above her keyboard. The implications of those words. She forced herself to continue typing, her fingers flying across the keys as the ancient text revealed its secrets. "I, Ed Zadik Bar-Yer, former scribe of the temple, write this testimony knowing my life is forfeit. Caiaphas fears the spread of the apostles' writings. Their message of social justice threatens those in power. But worse, in his view, is their insistence on personal accountability before God." The letter's next section made her inhale sharply. "I witnessed the meeting where Caiaphas recruited Saul of Tarsus. Become one of them. Create new writings," he commanded. "Shift their focus from the Father to the Son. Write to confuse. Write in a manner such that many will struggle to understand, especially the unlearned and the easily led. Add new doctrines to obscure the apostles' simple message. And make salvation a matter of faith alone, not works, so they stop questioning our authority and our actions." She sat back, her mind reeling. If this letter was authentic, it was exposing a deliberate conspiracy to alter Christianity from its very beginnings. Had they systematically changed Christ's message? Was Yer an actual eyewitness? Did he have any evidence of this conspiracy? As these questions swirled in her head, Sarah reached for her phone to text Dr. Harrison but stopped mid-motion. Something about this felt different, important, dangerous even. She'd read enough Gary McAvoy novels and David Leadbeater novels, and she'd seen enough Indiana Jones movies to know there was a grey area between reality and fiction. All ancient conspiracies had a basis in facts. Her phone buzzed. A text from James Bradford. Even seeing his name made her pulse jump, though she'd never admit it. 3 years of arguing over coffee in the museum cafe had taught her that the brilliant historian was both infuriating and infuriatingly attractive. "Still working late?" his message read. "Thought I saw your light on. Coffee?" Sarah ignored the message and turned back to the translation. The ancient scribe's words pulled her deeper. But there were those who knew, those who preserved the true testimonies. We hid copies in places they would never think to search, using the ancient symbols of our fathers. But most crucial are the records we kept of their plan. Each step, each change, each deliberate alteration of Christ's message. From the first letters Saul wrote, to the final manipulation that would come at... The text ended abruptly at a tear in the papyrus. Sarah swore softly. Crucial information about the details of the final manipulation was lost. Her phone buzzed again. Another text message. This time it was from Dr. Harrison. Vatican delegation arriving in 20 minutes. Cardinal Romano leading them. Sarah's fingers flew faster across the keys, desperate to document everything before they arrived. Then footsteps echoed in the museum's marble hallway. Determined footsteps. Too soon. She quickly slipped the papyrus into her tablet case just as Dr. James Bradford appeared in her doorway. Perfect timing as always. Dr. Chen. He leaned against the doorframe, his dark eyes taking in the organized chaos of her workspace. Still working on the new scroll fragment? Sarah fought the urge to smooth her hair. James Bradford was everything she usually avoided in a man, arrogant, skeptical, and annoyingly handsome in that rugged way. He actually reminded her of another James. Bond. James Bond, she thought to herself and smiled. Although James Bradford did not exude a tuxedo and shaken martinis aura, unlike his namesake, Sarah had noticed that there was still something quite dangerous about him. Dr. Bradford specialized in disproving the authenticity of religious artifacts, which made him both the last person she wanted to talk to about her discovery and possibly the only one who could help verify it. "Just finishing up," she said, trying to sound casual. "And please, after 3 years of arguing over coffee in the museum cafe, you can call me Sarah." He smiled that infuriating half-smile that always made her stomach flutter. "Okay, Sarah then." He stepped into the lab. "Speaking of coffee, I was wondering if..." The lights went out. In the sudden darkness, Sarah heard the faint sound of heavy footsteps coming down the hallway. They were too heavy for the museum's night guards. James was already moving. "Back door," he whispered, reaching for her hand. "Now." As they slipped out the lab's rear entrance, Sarah realized two things. She was still holding James's hand, and her quiet academic life had just become extremely complicated. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow in the service corridor as they hurried toward the staff exit. Sarah's heart pounded, though whether from fear or his hand still gripping hers, she wasn't quite sure. "Wait," James whispered, pulling her into a supply closet. The space was tight, forcing them close together. Sarah could smell his cologne, something expensive and distinctly masculine. He pressed a finger to his lips as heavy footsteps passed their hiding place. "Friends of yours?" he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "I was about to ask you the same thing." Sarah tried to ignore how his body felt pressed against hers. "The Vatican's Archaeological Commission has been surprisingly interested in this scroll fragment." "The Vatican?" His eyebrows rose. "Sarah, what exactly did you find?" Before she could answer, her phone started vibrating. A text from Father Thomas, her old professor from Cambridge. "Urgent, need to speak with you. Don't trust anyone." The footsteps were returning. "Do you trust me?" James asked suddenly, his dark eyes intense in the dim light. "That's a loaded question for someone I've only argued with over coffee." Yet here we are, hiding in a closet. His lips twitched into that infuriating half-smile. "I know a place we can go, a safe house of sorts, but we need to move now." The footsteps were getting closer. Sarah thought of the papyrus in her tablet case, with its mysterious message about truth and deception. She thought of Father Thomas's warning. "Lead the way, Dr. Bradford." His smile widened. "James, he corrected, and then he was pulling her toward the emergency exit, into the rainy London night and straight into what would become either the greatest discovery in Christian history or their death sentence. The rain had soaked both of them by the time James led her to his Jaguar F-Type, parked 2 blocks from the museum. The sleek black car purred to life as Sarah checked her tablet case. The papyrus was safe and dry. "Nice car for a historian," she commented as they pulled into London traffic. "Nice observation for someone who's not telling me what we're running from." He navigated smoothly through the wet streets, checking the rearview mirror frequently. "Though I'm guessing it has something to do with that papyrus you're clutching like it's the Holy Grail." Sarah hesitated. In the warm interior of the car, with rain streaming down the windows, the events in the lab felt almost surreal. "How did you know it was a papyrus? Would you believe me if I said it might be more important than the Holy Grail?" "To your first question, I have my sources." He turned onto a less travelled street. "To your second, coming from anyone else, no. But you're the most rigorous researcher I know. You don't jump at shadows or chase religious fairy tales." "Is that why you've been arguing with my findings for 3 years?" "I've been trying to get your attention for 3 years," he corrected, as he turned to look deeply into her eyes. "The arguments were just a bonus." Before Sarah could process that revelation, headlights blazed behind them. A black SUV was gaining speed. James swore softly. "Hold on." The Jaguar surged forward, engine growling as they wove through traffic. Sarah gripped her seat as James demonstrated driving skills that were definitely not learned in academia. "MI6?" she asked, only half-jokingly. "Former Royal Marines. Before I decided ancient history was more interesting than modern conflicts." He took a sharp turn down an alley. "Your turn. What's in the papyrus?" The SUV was still behind them. As Sarah held her tablet case, her hands shook slightly. "It's a letter, 1st century, hidden in the scroll fragment's binding. According to this, Caiaphas and Paul deliberately added books to the New Testament, books that weren't written by Christ's actual apostles. By doing this, they systematically changed the original message. The letter also claims Caiaphas and Paul deliberately—" She stopped as another SUV appeared ahead of them, blocking the street. James's face was grim as he checked his mirrors. "We're about to have company, Sarah. Whatever's in that letter, someone obviously doesn't want it found." He reached across her to open the glove compartment, revealing a handgun. "Last chance to tell me you're secretly an international spy." "Sorry to disappoint. Just a boring academic who may have stumbled onto the biggest cover-up in Christian history." She tried to smile, but her heart was racing. "Nothing boring about you, Dr. Chen." James's eyes met hers again for a moment, intense and searching, before returning to the approaching vehicles. "Now, about that safe house I mentioned." The SUVs were closing in from both directions. Sarah clutched her tablet case and nodded. "Drive." The Jaguar fishtailed around a corner, spraying water across the pavement. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another text from Father Thomas. "Get out, now." "Problem?" James asked, smoothly maneuvering between 2 buses. "It's Father Thomas," showing him the text. "He never sends messages like this." "Then your discovery is even more significant than you realize." James pressed the accelerator harder. "Trust me, we need to keep moving." "Okay, I trust you, but they're right behind us," Sarah gasped as they flew around another corner. "That's strange," James said moments later. "They've had at least 3 clear shots at us since the museum. Vatican security forces don't typically hesitate." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying they might not be trying to eliminate us, maybe just contain us, or," his brow furrowed, "direct us." "To what end?" Sarah asked. James shook his head. "I don't know, and that is what's worrying me." The SUVs were falling behind, but Sarah had a feeling this was just the beginning. She studied James's profile as he drove, noting how his scholarly demeanor had shifted to something more dangerous, more compelling. What other secrets was Dr. Bradford hiding? A flash of movement caught her eye. "Motorcycle, coming up fast." James checked his mirrors and swore softly. "Time for Plan B." He continued driving for another minute, and then made a sharp turn into what appeared to be a solid brick wall. But the holographic projection dissolved around them, revealing a hidden entrance to an underground parking facility. MI6 might have been an understatement, Sarah managed as the wall rematerialized behind them. James parked and turned to her, his expression serious. There are organizations within organizations, Sarah. Some want the truth found. Others? He glanced at her tablet case. According to the letter, after adding additional books to the New Testament, Caiaphas went on to set in motion a final manipulation. James, what do you think it was? That's what we have to find out, Sarah, James answered, as they both climbed out of the car. The hunt for truth had begun, and somewhere in the rainy London night, ancient secrets were waiting to be found.
Well, that is the end of that chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. If you cannot wait for next week's episode, the paperback and ebook versions of the book are available on Amazon now. The audiobook will be available at the end of May on the Author's Bookstore. midheavens.org. See you next week.